there are other ideas in Kabbalah that are talking about how the fetus itself, the soul, contains the entire knowledge of the universe.
Right.
And the tzimtzum is that it all needs to be in that tiny body that grows up. And it is overwhelming. And it is overwhelming for the mother as well. And this is a part of the hardship of the pregnancy. And I really like the version that the pregnancy stupidity is because it's too much knowledge and too much, and the fetus has so much in there. And then the other story, and I think it's Kabbalah, but it's also folk stories from other religions, is that the angels are then kicking the soul in here. That's why we have this, the angel kick. And this gets the baby to forget everything. I didn't know that it has a Jewish source, but I think that it has midrashim, and it's also in a couple of places. It's quite fascinating. I like the idea. I also did tzimtzum of had the fetus having all that knowledge in it.
Yeah. I've heard that, just that idea of forgetting on birth,
I like it. But we'll never know if it was Jewish original or if it came from somewhere else, adapted by our rabbis into our literature.
Well, nothing's Jewish original in the sense that...
There's a lot that they took from the Zoroastrians, without a doubt, and other places as well during the times. But maybe they have some ideas of themselves that are original.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean it that way.
Did you have any cancellations on the last few days, or did you move online with the smoke and everything?
Well, I didn't have any classes. My classes that I'm teaching is asynchronous online. So.
That's nice.
Yeah, so no problem about having to go anywhere. I mean, some of the students are in other places.
Do you have students from all over, or still Jersey mostly?
Well, New York, because it's Fordham, but I'm not sure where all of them are. I mean, some of them mentioned being in like California or some other place.
So they could be during the year in here and just back to their parents for the summer and take the course?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best way to do it. Hi.
Hello.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
But it's convenient for everybody. So.
Do you like it? Or are you missing the personal element?
I'd rather be personal, but do this kind of, summer classes hard. If you do it personal, it's like 3 hours, 4 days a week.
That's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of wear and tear.
So how is the asynchronistic working? You're recording and then they need to...
This one, for this thing I recorded lectures and sketched them, took PowerPoint slides.
Do they write you questions?
And then you have like discussion boards and little assignments and papers.
Do you know some of them?
No, but I don't know. Maybe one person in the class I've had before, but mostly not.
Sometimes I wish more universities would allow asynchronistic learning.
You mean online? They tend to...
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. I think the air conditioner is not on. I think the air conditioner is not on.
Well, that would be Michael.
No, because you don't hear it.
Yeah.
So it's not on. Am I correct that if we don't hear the air conditioner that it's not working?
Shabbat shalom.
Hi. 72?
wants to watch it, but he doesn't have it's clear. He realized he's never going to. She said you might be interested.
Okay, I'll see if I can get it.
Oh, you don't have to, but, you know, if you did it.
Up to you. I'm fine with the secretary now. But there's no air circulation either, so you'll get all of it.
So I'll set it at 68 with one little bit.
I know. Okay. Hello, hello. Oh,
Me too.
if you're not sure to send it, then maybe we'll send it.
I'm in compliment section.
Always just like, you want to text me. Now you hear it. Good question. I did not put it in. That depends if did the rabbi have anyone that he did say anything about it?
Not one more.
Your call. Okay, anyone specific? Whatever you want. Do you want me to ask this? Okay, I can do that. Ask for it, let me know. I can find it. Should we do it after your reading? No, after Zoom will not be nice. When you have another reading before the Haggadah.
I'll just like the one. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to all those gathered here and everyone tuning in to our streaming channel. This week has been a powerful reminder of all the damage that we've been doing and continue to do to our environment. So I'd like to open with the words of Rabbi Lawrence Troster, who was one of the great environmental advocates of the Reform movement. And he wrote, "The perfection of the world is in our hands. There is a midrash which Jewish environmentalists are fond of quoting. When God created the first human beings, God led them around the Garden of Eden and said, 'Look at my works, see how beautiful they are, how excellent. For your sake I created them all. See to it that you do not spoil and destroy my world, for if you do, there will be no one else to repair it.'" In the Jewish liturgy, there is a prayer called Aleinu, in which we ask that the world be soon perfected under the sovereignty of God. Tikkun Olam, the perfecting or the repairing of the world, has become a major theme in modern Jewish social justice theology. It is usually expressed as an activity which must be done by humans in partnership with God. It is an important concept in light of the task ahead in environmentalism. In our ignorance and our greed, we have damaged the world and silenced many of the voices of the choir of creation. Now we must fix it. There is no one else to repair it but us.
Please join me on page 16. Or Zamru Adonai.
Turn back to page 6 on the top. We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to live lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Joined together, now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. it shineth its whole time. Tzivanu, Hadlik ner, Shel Shabbat. Now we turn to page 20 and 21 for the welcome of the Shabbat, L'chadodi. Remain standing and turn to page 28 for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship.
La, 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 la.
Please be seated. The bottom of page 30. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsevaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. Page 32, Ahavat Olam. Turn to page 34 for the Shema and the Via Hafta.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'otecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha vishinatan levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvleftecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartom leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha
וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Turn to the bottom of page 39. Read responsively by paragraph. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu, page 42. top of page 44, Vishamru. Now let's rise, turn to page 46 for the tefillah.
ומתעומר
ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוהו חסנה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated.
We'll continue with Shalom Rav on page 60.
Well, first on page 59. When we behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you set in place, what are we humans that you are mindful of us, we mortals that you take note of us? You made us little less than divine, adorned us with glory and majesty. You gave us dominion over your handiwork, laying the world at our feet. How majestic is your name throughout the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, Hatov Shimcha Ulecha Lekodot. Shalom Rav, page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael,
Our thoughts now turn to those in need of healing, healing of body, healing of spirit. We can think of those close to us that are in need of healing, and we can also think of our planet as well, and include our Mother Earth in our prayers.
This prayer, El Narefan Allah, is the prayer that Moses asked God to heal his sister, Miriam.
We pray
Shabbat brings us such beautiful music. It also brings us a moment of silence for us to say the prayers on page 62 or 63, or the prayers that are in our hearts, or just to be. Well, this week's Torah portion is called B'ha'al Lotecha, which means when you ascend, and it's the third parsha in the fourth book of the Torah, which is commonly referred to the fourth book as the book of Numbers, but of course that's the name assigned to it by the Christians. In Jewish tradition, it's known as Bamidbar, meaning in the wilderness or in the desert, because it takes place after Sinai during the 40 years spent in the desert that separates Egypt from Canaan. B'ha'al Lotecha stitches together several short items and kind of jumps from one to another, wandering around topics, through topics, much like the Israelites were said to have wandered through the desert. But as J.R.R. Tolkien wrote in The Lord of the Rings, not all those who wander are lost. And contrary to popular misconceptions, nomadic people do not wander aimlessly. Nomads follow established paths, moving in conjunction with the changing seasons, following circuits that bring them back to the same places year after year at the same time of year. And when nomads change their way of life and they settle down and start with agriculture and live in villages, towns, and cities, they find ways to symbolically reenact their movements through ritual observances. This could well be the purpose behind those mysterious monuments from prehistory, like Stonehenge and the statues of Easter Island. But for the Jewish people, the monuments by which we reenact our desert wanderings are not made of stone, but of parchment. They are our Torah scrolls, and through our weekly Torah readings, we travel through the 5 books of Moses, completing the circuit as we return again to the beginning following the High Holy Days. The word we use for repentance at that time, teshuvah, means return, from which Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach wrote the lyrics, return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. We return each year to the spiritual land of our soul, while the Israelites ultimately will return to the physical land of our soul, the promised land. But at this point in the Torah, the Israelites are still very much in the wilderness, in a liminal space and time, somewhere between the slavery that remained a recent memory and the freedom that comes with finding a permanent home. Now, this week's Parsha wanders into an instruction to Aaron, the high priest, Moses' brother, about lighting the 7 lamps of the menorah. We refer to the holiday of Hanukkah as the Festival of Lights, and we light the Hanukkah menorah, or Hanukkah, which we say has 8 lights, but really it has 9, technically, because there's the shamash candle. And the Hanukkah is what tends to come to mind when we talk about menorahs, but it actually is a special kind of menorah that was formed by adding extra branches on each side and giving it 4 arms rather than 3. But the original 7-branched menorah had 3 on each side, like that one, although for some reason ours doesn't have the 7th light, it has the Star of David instead. But the original 7-branched menorah was made from gold, according to the Torah, and placed in the holy tabernacle where the ark resided. And 1 or more gold menorahs were also placed in the first and second temples. And that became the symbol of the Jewish people long before we adopted the 6-pointed star or shield of David, Magen David. You might note that the significance of the number 7, which corresponds to the 7 days of the week. As the sociologist Eviatar Zerubbabel at Rutgers explains, while we take for granted the idea that a week has 7 days, that number is completely arbitrary. We know that a day is based on the earth turning around on its axis, a month is based on the moon circling the earth or rotating, a year is based on the earth revolving around the sun. All of them are a natural kind of nomadic wandering. In fact, the word planet comes from the ancient Greek word meaning wanderer. And like the days, months, and years, the week is also a circuit that we move through over and over again, but it's one that's entirely a human invention. And that's why it requires a commandment to reinforce it, specifically our 4th commandment, which tells us to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, which is V'shamru. That's the song that we enjoyed singing so much. But it also emphasizes the idea that the week has 7 days, because it says 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. We're actually commanded to work for 6 days, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of Adonai your God. And the commandment also goes on to remind us, for in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth and the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the 7th day. So in observing the Sabbath, we not only obey the commandment, we also reenact the creation. And in reenacting the creation, we connect to that sacred time and space, the time and space that's removed from our everyday profane world. And just as the Sabbath is separated and exalted above the other days of the week, the 6 branches on the side of the menorah are on the same level as one another, but the menorah's central light stands above all the rest. The Parsha wanders on to establish the Levites as separate from the rest of the children of Israel, as they're placed in the service of God as a priestly tribe. And then it wanders further, providing some instruction regarding the Passover sacrifice. And it allows for a second Passover a little bit later on for anyone who was ritually unclean, which means you're handling the dead, and thereby unable to take part in the Passover ritual at the appointed time. And it also allows for proselytes to take part in the Passover. It says, One statute shall apply to you, to the proselyte and to the native-born citizen. So this not only allows for religious conversion, but also emphasizes that important ideal that we're seeing acted out this day of equality before the law. We wander on. The next section provides some detail about the Israelites wandering with God's presence signaled by a cloud over the tabernacle. As long as the cloud remained in place, the Israelites would stay where they were. And when the cloud moved, the Israelites would follow and settle wherever it ended up. This the Parsha explains. Whether it was for 2 days, a month, or a year, that the cloud hovered over the tabernacle, the children of Israel would encamp and not travel. And when it departed, they traveled. And along with the cloud hovering over the tabernacle, in the evening there was an appearance of fire over it that lasted until morning. And of course, fire, like light, is a symbol of the divine presence, from the burning bush to the pillar of flame that kept the Egyptians at bay while the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, to the lighting of the candles. And fire is how we light the lamps of the menorah. The cloud obscures the sight of God, but the glow establishes God's presence. We wander further in this parsha, and we get God's instructions to make silver trumpets to be used to summon people to assemble by blowing a long blast, a tekiah, or to announce that it's time to travel by blowing a series of short blasts, a teruah. God also tells the Israelites to blow a teruah if they have to go to war against an adversary who oppresses them, and to blow the trumpets on holidays and new moon celebrations. And if we, of course, associate tekiah and teruah with the shofar, the ram's horn, rather than silver trumpets, and particularly with the high holy days. In this parsha, the sounding of the trumpets serves as a signal, just as God's voice signaled the beginning of creation, when God said, "Let there be light." The sound came first, only after came the light that enables us to see. In the same way, before we are born, we exist in complete darkness inside our mother's womb, but not in silence. We can hear the sound of our mother's heartbeat, her voice, even something of the voices and sounds nearby. The parsha wanders on, and next comes a listing of the leaders of each tribe as the children of Israel prepare to travel away from Mount Sinai for the first time. And then we come to one of the many points. It's such a familiar story. The Israelites complain. They're complainers. They're always complaining, it seems, this time about not having any meat to eat, and saying how much better things were back in Egypt. And this naturally angers God. Moses is actually very upset by all this, and he says to God, it fetches, right? "Why have you treated your servant so badly? Why have I not found favor in your eyes that you placed the burden of this entire people upon me? Did I conceive this entire people? Did I give birth to them? That you say to me, 'Carry them in your bosom as the nurse carries the suckling to the land you promised their forefathers? Where can I get meat to give all these people? For they are crying on me, saying, give us meat to eat. Alone I cannot carry this entire people, for it is too hard for me. If this is the way you treat me, please kill me, if I have found favor in your eyes, so that I may not see my misfortune.'" Now, God, being patient with Moses, responds, "Assemble for me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the people's elders and leaders, and you shall take them to the tent of meeting, and they shall stand there with you. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will increase the spirit that is upon you and bestow it upon them. Then they will bear the burden of the people with you, so that you need not bear it alone." So in this passage, we have the idea of delegating power, with Moses as the central figure and the tribal leaders as having been given local authority. And this served as a model for the framers of the American Constitution, where the states are granted authority over anything not specified by the federal government. But also note here the number 70, reminding us of the 7 branches of the menorah, the 7 days of the week, as well as the sabbatical year, the 7th year, and the Jubilee year coming after 7 sabbaticals. The Parsha also relates how God increases his spirit on Moses so that it could be bestowed on these 70 elders, and they begin to prophesy. And hearing about this, Joshua, Moses' successor, but at this time he's just serving Moses, Joshua hears this, and he's like, what are these people? What's going on here? He implores Moses to imprison them, thinking they're false prophets. But Moses responds, are you zealous for my sake? If only all of Adonai's people were prophets, that Adonai would bestow God's Spirit upon them. And now these events are weaved together with the story of the Israelites craving meat. Remember that? And as God also goes on to tell Moses, and to the people you shall say, prepare yourselves for tomorrow, and you shall eat meat, because you have cried in the ears of Adonai, saying, who will feed us meat? For we had it better in Egypt. I think he was being sarcastic, but he said, Adonai will give you meat, and you shall eat. You shall eat it. Not 1 day, not 2 days, not 5 days, not 10 days, and not 20 days, but even for a full month until it comes out your nose and nauseates you. Because you have despised Adonai who is among you, and you cried before God, saying, why did we ever leave Egypt? At this point, Moses questions God, basically saying, how the hell are you going to provide enough meat for 600,000 people? To which God responds, is my power limited? In other words, I'm God, that's how. So he provides them with an enormous quantity of quail, as it turns out. But being angry about their lack of faith, he also punishes them and striking down the gluttons among them. And so we wander into the final vignette in the Parsha, which the healing prayer comes from, where it tells the story of how Aaron and Miriam criticized their brother Moses for marrying a Cushite woman. They believed that they had the right to criticize Moses because God had spoken to them as well. But we know that their criticism is unwarranted, if not prejudicial, especially for the line that follows, which tells us Moses was exceedingly humble, more so than any person on the face of the earth. And that's incredible when you think about, this great leader and the greatest prophet of all time being the most humblest of all time. So as a consequence, God once again is angered, and he summons the 3 siblings, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, to the tabernacle, where he rebukes Aaron and Miriam in a passage that goes like this. Adonai descended in a pillar of cloud and stood at the entrance of the tent and called to Aaron and Miriam, and they both went out. God said, please listen to my words. If there be prophets among you, I will make myself known to them in a vision. I will speak to them in a dream. Not so is my servant Moses. He is faithful throughout my house. With him I speak mouth to mouth, not in riddles. And he beholds the image of Adonai. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So apart from putting Aaron and Miriam in their place for their unwarranted criticism, this passage also tells us something about our prophets. God's relationship with Moses is unique and separate. It stands above all the rest. It's only with Moses that God communicates directly, mouth to mouth. All of the other prophets from God hear from God via visions, dreams, riddles. Unlike the older gods of polytheistic religions in antiquity, those who take familiar shapes and forms and interact with human beings directly and sometimes intimately, the concept of God that we have that's associated with our tradition, which is the first of the monotheistic religions, is of a God that is transcendent rather than immanent, beyond human understanding. But our God is also not a God who is unreachable or uncaring. God may be distant, as Martin Buber suggested, God may sometimes be in eclipse, hidden from us, just as we sometimes grow distant from God. But we're always in a relationship with God, one that is or ought to be what Buber called an I-you relationship. Not an I-it relationship where God is treated as a means to an end, where prayer and ritual are treated as magic formulas employed to achieve a desired result. No, it's not like Harry Potter casting a spell, but in an I-you relationship, we encounter God person to person. Not face to face, of course, but maybe mouth to mouth. That phrase in Hebrew, it's peh, but mouth to mouth, commonly used in contemporary English in the context of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. But this also resonates with the fact that the Hebrew words for soul and spirit, nephesh and ruach, also mean wind and breath. In Genesis, the Torah says that God breathed life into the earth, into Adam. Adam means earth. And it is perfectly natural to associate breath with life and spirit. The Latin word, basis of talking English now here, but the Latin word for breathe is spirare, from which we get words like inspire and inspiration, literally meaning to breathe into. Words like aspire, and aspiration, meaning simply to breathe. Words like conspire and conspiracy, meaning to breathe together. And words like expire and expiration, meaning to breathe out. Now, our wandering parsha ends with Miriam being punished with a skin disease for belittling Moses. Aaron begs Moses to intercede with God, which Moses does, and God says she'll be cured after being quarantined, remember that word, quarantined for 7 days. Once again, we find the number 7 being evoked in this parsha. 7 days for the quarantine, 7 tribal elders, 70 tribal errors, 7 lamps in the menorah, and 7 days in a week. Shabbat being the 7th day, reflecting the 6 days of creation, and how on the 7th day God rested. We mark the beginning of Shabbat by lighting candles, just as God's labors began with the creation of light. By extension, following a Kabbalistic interpretation, all of creation is formed from that first light. All of it are bits and pieces of that splintered, fractured light. Today we understand that our planet and all of life is made up of the same atoms as the stars, splintered and fractured bits of stars. We're the leftover material from the sun. As the astronomer Carl Sagan once put it, the cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself. And as Joni Mitchell sang, we are stardust, we are golden, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden. In other words, we've got to complete the circuit, to return again, not to a state of complete innocence, that would be impossible, but to a time when we lived in harmony with the world, with all of life, and with the sacred and the spiritual. The divine light is all too often clouded, obscured, in shadow, and eclipsed. And the light within us is itself fractured and splintered, because according to Kabbalah, God's creation was incomplete, was left to us to complete, to heal and repair this broken world, to heal and repair our broken selves. We presently find ourselves wandering in the wilderness, but that doesn't mean we're lost, and it doesn't mean we're wandering aimlessly. As we kindle the Sabbath lights, we can kindle the lights of renewal. As we breathe on an ember to help it catch fire, we can breathe life and spirit whenever and wherever a spark still remains. As we grow closer to one another through family, friendship, and community, as we grow closer to the divine through worship, communion, and good works, as we grow closer to creation through acts of conservation and preservation, and by embracing our role as caretaker and protector of the natural world, so do we grow closer to a time when we return to a world that is healed and repaired, a time when all of humanity will follow the words of the prophet Micah to do justly, love mercy, and like Moses, to walk humbly with our God wherever we may wander. Shabbat Shalom.
Lance words about breath, life, and spirit brought me to compose a poem from his unpublished book, Yet to Come, In the Womb of God. In the womb of God, immersed in deepest darkness, seeing only points of light through eyes close to the outer world, momentary flashes, so small. Against the sphere of constant light, in the womb of God, I breathe softly familiar tones, so still and clear, surrounded by the vistas warmth, carried through the currents smooth, rocked back and close within the sacred belly, growing inside the womb of God, expanding and evolving heaven
Rise and turn to the bottom of page 282 for the Elena.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורם עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נושא שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת זו בגוהי מרומי. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס סולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Tonight, this week, we mark the passing and the yahrzeit of Chris Beldock, husband of Jackie Green, Marvin Schulhoff, brother of Rifki Jacobowitz, Betty Lou Paskey, mother of Daniel Paskey, Ronnie Miller-Gar, mother-in-law of Marshall Jacobowitz. For all those in our hearts and for all those for whom there is no one to mourn, we join together in the Kaddish on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divarach irutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agalo ivzman kariv ve'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mivarach, Le'olam ulamei almayo, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudashah barichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'sharata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'el kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved. Amen. May be seated. We call upon Michael Fishbein, President of the congregation, for announcements.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Lance. And Lance, as always, it's like a PhD degree we get, and now it's caught on video, and we can watch it when the portion comes around next time. And
Go back and learn asynchronistically, like in his college.
Asynchronously.
Okay, yeah. I know what that means. And thank you, student Cantor Iris Collin. You'll be here next week as well. And then, looking ahead, July 2nd,
On July 6th, it's both me and
July 6th, rather, July 6th, at an outdoor service, both student Cantor Joe Flaxman and Iris Collin will be with us, and that should be quite
It's gonna be fun.
an evening. Adas Emuno will have a table at this year's Leonia Pride celebration, which will be held on Sunday, June 11th, from noon until 4:30 in Wood Park, located behind the Leonia Library. And we're looking for members who can help at our table and explain why Adas Emuno is honored to be at this celebration. The Adas Emuno Poetry Garden meets this Sunday at 7 p.m. Is that correct? It's on the calendar.
Then it must be.
So then it must be true. Social Action Committee, led by Annette DeMarco, is collecting children-friendly foods such as tuna, mac and cheese, low-sugar cereals, and canned fruit. Baby diapers remain a priority. The Adas Emuno Book Club is reading Shanda, a memoir of shame and secrecy, and the book club will meet July 10th, Monday, July 10th, via Zoom, and all are welcome to join in what will probably be a very lively discussion of a pretty interesting book. We'll be placing additional commemorative pavers in our patio this summer, and the deadline for ordering your engraved pavers for this season is June 15th. I brought a number of order forms for pavers, and they can be found at the entrance to the sanctuary. The patio appears to be a big hit and will be the location of many temple activities. I want to remind you that our annual congregational meeting will be held this coming Thursday, June 15th at 7 p.m. in the social hall. It's an in-person meeting, in-person only. We'll be voting on new and returning trustees, on the budget for the year, and on an amendment to the bylaws, increasing the number of trustees. A letter and other details were sent last week regarding this meeting, together with a form for selecting a proxy to vote on your behalf if you will not be able to attend the meeting. I really encourage you to send in that proxy as soon as possible. Tonight's Oneg is sponsored by Doris White in honor of her grandson Diego's graduation from Drexel University. And I understand he even has a job. Wow. 2 for 1. Fanny was his first religious school teacher at Adas Emuno, and she loved Diego, and Diego loved her. Thank you, Dylan, for live streaming tonight's service and all Friday night services. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Michael. And before our closing hymn, a prayer for the renewal of creation. Creator of the universe, in whose hand is the breath of all life and soul of every person, grant us the gift of Shabbat, a day of rest from all our labors. With all of our senses may we perceive the glory of your works. Fill us with your goodness, that we may attest to your great deeds. Strengthen us to become your faithful partners, preserving the world for the sake of future generations. May it be your will, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, to renew your blessing for the world in our day, as you have done from the beginning of time. Amen.